What is the downright scariest thing that has ever happened to you, be it paranormal or otherwise? When I was 16 I was at a local mall by myself. I noticed a large man kept going where I would go, and just gave me a bad gut feeling. After about 15 minutes of him following me around I go into a Starbucks and sure enough he follows. This Starbucks was right next to the mall's public restroom, and I so stupidly decided to go into the women's room. Thinking he wouldn't follow, I go into a stall, lock the door, and pull my feet up so they can't be seen since the stall's lot didn't continue to the floor. No more than 10 seconds later I hear the bathroom door open and someone walking in. The man stopped in front of my stall door and just stands there, facing it for what felt like minutes. He was so close to the door his boots were pretending into the stall. Then, without any words spoken from either of us, he left and I never saw him again. Scariest few minutes of my life, and I'm still so mad at myself for isolating myself in a bathroom. I was about 5 or 6 years old living in Dallas and I was in the nurse's office when the tornado warning siren went off. The nurse ran out of the room towards the other side of the school, leaving me behind. The lights had gone off and I didn't want to be alone, so I went to follow her and ended up on this ramp that connected both sides of the school. To the right of me was the cafeteria and on my left was a wall with floor-to-ceiling windows. It was so dark outside that I could barely see anything out the window. The sound of the siren combined with the intense wind scared me the most. By this point I was in tears and I just stood there for who knows how long because I was so scared. Then the vice principal came running up the ramp, scooped me in her arms and asked whose class I was in. I remember walking into the classroom and seeing my teacher with a flashlight in her hands huddled with the other students in the middle of the classroom. 16 years later Ms. May is still my hero. I fell asleep on the couch at around 6-7 p.m. and woke up at 4 a.m. in the middle of my backyard when it was raining. Flying from Denver to NYC, about 30 seconds after the plane leaves the ground the left engine explodes. Likely a bird, they said. I'm pretty calm, but start getting freaked out when I notice the stewardess are all crying. Completely freaked out when we are getting close to landing and there are fire trucks all up and down the runway, and the runway we are landing at is way the hell away from the terminal and everything else. Opening my front door to see 12 armed police officers about to raid the house. I was watching The Exorcist when I was 16 and my grandmother came home and told me to turn it off because that was the last movie my grandfather watched the night he died. About 20 minutes later I saw him rocking in the chair next to my couch and no matter how many damn times I pulled the blanket over my head he stayed there until he looked at me, smiled and vanished. Still can't watch that movie to this day without freaking out about it, and that was 18 years ago. 2 of my friends were spending the night at my parents' house. We were all still in high school. My bedroom was a room away from the kitchen, connected by a pantry and a hallway. I heard the back door handle jiggle, which meant a cat wanted to go outside. So I went to let it out and get a drink. As I walked into the kitchen I noticed there was no cat there, and the door to the basement was wide open, which we always left closed and locked. So I closed and locked the basement door. A tad unnerved, but it didn't matter. Next to the basement door was a staircase that went upstairs to the 2nd floor. This is relevant later. A couple hours later I hear the fridge door close. I noticed that because I didn't hear it open, but it was in a different room, so that's not too weird. What made it weird was that I didn't hear anyone walk down the stairs or by my bedroom from the front of the house. The back stairs to the 2nd floor are really loud and creaky, so I would have heard something. Unnerved, I took a knife and went into the kitchen. I see no one in there, but immediately noticed smoke coming up from under the basement door. I opened it up and it was filled with smoke. Closed it, got my parents up, called the fire dept, go get ready to sleep in my car for the night as it was about 4 a.m. at this point. A firefighter comes and tells us it's okay to go back into the house now. For some reason the furnace had caught fire inside and was filling the house with carbon monoxide. Had my friends and I went to sleep we'd all be dead. Still have no clue what jiggled the doorknob or closed the fridge, but it kept me alive. Sleep paralysis. Just being unable to move while in bed and see a figure with blood red eyes looking at you. I was on a Girl Scout trip staying in this older house in Sandy Hook. I think I was around 11 or 12. We were all in bed, and for some reason I wanted to go downstairs. I remember hearing the parents talking in the downstairs kitchen, and I was walking toward where I saw a lit up room. Then it all disappears, and I'm standing in the middle of an empty dilapidated room. Random crap. Plaster on the floor. No furniture. I freak out and try to retrace my steps back to where I thought the adults were. I wander around for a bit and finally find a staircase. Weird, the staircase was blocked by a couch at the bottom. Then I realize I had been sleepwalking, and somehow managed to go up to the 3rd floor where we were told not to go. I was followed by a man in a car one night and I'm 100% certain he would have tried to abduct me. This was in Chicago after I helped chaperone a debate team trip. I was walking back to my car and the guy passed me, then circled back and passed again. I honestly thought he thought I was a hooker and remember thinking he'd be disappointed if he stopped. Then he started driving next to me at walking speed but had to move when another car came. I crossed and crouched behind a parked car for a minute, and when I stood up he was gone. Kept walking, and when I got to the next intersection he was hiding on a cross street. I was almost back to my car and he was still following me when I ran into a group of teenage-ish girls. I blurted out, "I think that man is following me." Meanwhile dude parks behind my car waiting for me to be alone again. Thankfully the girls walked me to my car and texted me his license plate, but I don't think I've ever felt so unsafe in my life. After our son was born we had many incidents of his toys going off and making noise when everyone was downstairs. One time we had one go off in the middle of the night in our master bedroom. The logical explanation is that the electronics are unpredictable when the battery is dying or if a switch is halfway set. Still very upsetting at the time. It was about 10:30 p.m. and I'm laying on the couch jamming out through my earbuds and playing on my iPad. I close my eyes while listening to Lithium by Nirvana. When I notice the song just cut out, I open my eyes and I'm outside, in the cul-de-sac at the other end of my neighborhood, about half a mile, wearing nothing but pajama bottoms and just below freezing temperatures, just staring out into a cornfield. I walk back to my house, and when I get to my room I saw it was like 3 a.m. Still no clue what happened, but I had apparently scribbled in my school notebooks and put out the fireplace during my little nighttime adventure. I had thought it was all a dream until I woke up the next day and my mom asked about all the grass I had shaken off my pants onto the floor, so that freaked me out pretty bad. I was out snorkeling with some friends off the eastern coast of Nicaragua. I noticed a shark on the ocean floor just going about his business, so I pop out of the water to yell at my friends that there is a shark just below us. Suddenly I see the shark coming up towards me, which at first I thought was awesome. But as it got closer, I could see it was coming directly at me, which was not awesome. I proceeded to freak out, swimming as fast as I can at the surface of the water, lose a fin and my goggles while I rush to safety. At this point the shark is just a few feet from me as I hurl myself onto the boat, only to see the Nicaraguans and my friends laughing hysterically. The shark was apparently caught on one of their lines and the local guy was just slowly dragging him up to the surface to get a better view. I am not normally scared of anything. This was by far the scariest moment of my life. Paranormal. Hearing my name called by my mother outside in our country home. My mother was in town 30 miles away otherwise. Slid on an icy road on the way to work and totaled my car on the cemetery gate. When I was about 14 my sister and I shared a room, but when she moved out I got more and more uncomfortable. Anyways, in one of the corners of the room I had a net that held up my teddy bears towards the roof. I had a weird dream and woke up sweating and I heard someone laugh. I look up and saw white hollow eyes and a top hat and what looked like a person swinging their legs. They sat there mocking me, saying how worthless I was, and eventually I got the courage to leave and go to my parents' room. He followed me to my parents' room laughing the whole time, and my parents would not wake up even with me screaming, so I sat in the corner crying all night while he mocked me. It happened a couple more times, but that the worst night. I eventually took down the net and got rid of all the teddy bears and haven't owned any since. I was traveling down a back road coming back from a soccer game. I was 10, and we looked up through the sunroof and saw what looked like a giant black plane flying low. It was so close it was only just over the treetops, but you couldn't really hear it even when we turned the radio down. After what seemed like an hour, which was most likely only seconds, it disappeared. We weren't even close to a landing strip, so it couldn't have been that. I still have no idea what it was. Another would be that all of my relatives when sleeping over at what was my great grandparents' house had the same dream of a witch-like woman beckoning them to come here. I had the dream and freaked out, then was told after that my aunts, uncles and even mom had it. There was a lady that floated at the top of the stairs in front of my bedroom door when I was growing up. My parents could never figure out why I'd fall asleep on the landing of the stairs instead of my bed at night. 3 suspected witches in the area had been murdered in out front yard, which may or may not had something to do with it, and yes, this is 100% serious. The women that were killed are even on record with the local historical society. It was unsettling. I still don't get into horror movies because of that house.